She thought it would be her glorious Hollywood comeback. A red carpet return, flashbulbs, applause, redemption. But instead, Meghan Markle found herself standing awkwardly at the edge of a soundstage, in full makeup and wardrobe, waiting to be called for a single take of a 5-second walk-on scene. No lines, no coverage, no second chances. Just a quick pass through a hallway in the background of a scene she was once promised she'd star in. And worse, the director didn't even call her by name. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. You ever wonder how it feels to go from global headlines to a background extra? Because that's exactly what happened. Meghan Markle, the Duchess, the humanitarian, the Netflix executive producer, the one-time tabloid powerhouse, had made headlines for months leading up to this film. Amazon MGM's Close Personal Friends was pitched as the project that would reintroduce Meghan Markle to the world of scripted comedy. A vibrant, youthful ensemble cast, a modern, Gen Z tone, star-studded leads in Lily Collins and Brie Larson, and one very strategically teased surprise appearance that kept gossip columns spinning. Now here's the twist. What was hyped as a supporting role was, in reality, a humiliating 5-second background shot, one that may not even make the final cut. So how did that happen? And why did director Jason Orley, someone known for giving fresh talent space to shine, make the brutal decision to shrink Meghan's part down to almost nothing? This isn't just a story about Hollywood casting decisions. No, this is a story about ego, reputation, backstage politics, clashing expectations, and a celebrity who misread the room at the exact wrong moment. It's a drama that unfolded far from the public eye, until it didn't. Until the audio leaks. Until the memos. Until Meghan's own team started pointing fingers. Until one of the actors walked off set. Until even the editor had to get involved. You're about to get the full picture, the raw, unvarnished truth behind what really happened on the set of Close Personal Friends. But be warned, the revelations are wild. Because this isn't the version of the story that PR teams want you to hear. This is what really went down, from the dressing rooms to the executive suite. But before we dive in, let me ask you something directly. What happens when someone who once walked onto the world stage as a duchess is reduced to a background shadow in her own so-called comeback? Let's rewind. In early press briefings, insiders hinted that Meghan's character would be a refreshingly dry, stylish cameo with layers of irony. Translation? The part was supposed to play off her public image. Think meta-comedy. A la Lisa Kudrow in The Comeback, or Julia Louis-Dreyfus post-Seinfeld. But beneath the buzzwords, the subtext was clear. Meghan's role wasn't going to be big. Not at first. But if things went well, if she clicked with the cast, if audiences responded positively, the role could expand in a sequel or future spin-off. It was a trial balloon. But someone didn't get that memo. Or, more likely, someone refused to read between the lines. From the moment negotiations began, Meghan's team, spearheaded by a trio of lawyers, a celebrity publicist, and a Netflix-hardened image fixer, pushed hard for more creative control. Not outright producer credit, but influence. Subtle, implied influence. Script tweaks. Wardrobe preferences. Promotional conditions. There was even talk, according to 2 industry sources, of floating Prince Harry for a surprise end credits appearance. That pitch went nowhere. And here's where things started to crack. According to multiple people close to the production, Amazon MGM became uneasy. The team wanted buzz, yes, but not chaos. Meghan's presence brought heat, but it also brought risk. Every creative decision would suddenly have global tabloid interest. Every set photo could spark a backlash. Every joke in the script would have to be vetted to avoid misinterpretation. Brie Larson reportedly flagged concerns in early read-throughs. Lily Collins, who has maintained her distance publicly, allegedly told one friend, "This isn't the vibe we signed up for." Meanwhile, Jason Orley, a director celebrated for his breezy tone and improv-friendly sets, found himself caught in the middle. Should he indulge Meghan's ideas, or stick to the original vision? Should he risk alienating the core cast by elevating a controversial wildcard, or hold the line? Ultimately, he made the call. A bold one, a cold one, and one that would humiliate Meghan Markle in ways she never saw coming. She had rehearsed. She had prepped. She had even flown in her own stylist. But when the final call sheet went out, Her name wasn't listed in any speaking role. Just one word, walk on. The moment she found out, we'll get there. But first, understand this. Meghan's return to acting wasn't just about the role. It was supposed to be about rebranding. She had walked away from the royals. She had tried her hand at documentary producing. She had even dipped into children's books and lifestyle podcasts. But none of those stuck. This one film, was supposed to be the pivot. The moment she'd be seen again as an artist, not a figurehead. As talent, not tabloid fodder. There was a plan. But behind every glossy rollout, there's a mess no one wants to show. This mess. It was full of icy stairs, slammed dressing room doors, a cast fracture, and a crew stuck in the middle. By the second week of filming, rumors swirled that Meghan wasn't getting along with hair and makeup, that she brought in her own lighting preferences, something not even Oscar winners do without a fight, that she asked to review camera angles before final setups. True or not, perception on set hardened. Jokes were made. Whispers grew louder. And then came the day when she showed up ready to shoot. And Jason Orley said flatly, "We'll need you for just one take. Hallway scene. No dialogue." Just like that. To the rest of the cast, it was a clear boundary being set. To Meghan, it was an insult, an erasure, a slap in the face. And what happened next? Oh, it set off a chain reaction that would shake the entire production. Because Meghan didn't take it quietly. Not at all. We'll break down exactly what happened in those explosive moments between director and Duchess. We'll unpack the cast's silent rebellion, the crew's whispered relief, and the studio's decision to leak just enough details to shift the narrative. We'll even hear what Lily Collins allegedly said as she stormed off set, and why Brie Larson made sure to document everything from day one. But most of all, we'll reveal the ultimate Hollywood irony. How one of the world's most recognizable women was reduced to a literal background blur, and why that decision might have saved the entire film. So buckle up. This isn't a comeback story. It's a cautionary tale. And it's only just getting started. What happens when the role you bragged about for months turns out to be something no one ever intended to give you? When Meghan Markle signed on to close personal friends, she believed she wasn't just making a guest appearance. She was making a statement. This was meant to be her re-entry into scripted entertainment. A powerful, polished, comedic return that would silence critics and reposition her not as a duchess clinging to headlines, but as a legitimate actress, reborn. But here's the question. Was she ever truly offered that role? Or was it all just a carefully staged illusion, set up to manage her expectations while quietly limiting her influence? Let's rewind to the negotiation table, because that's where the contradictions began. Industry insiders say Meghan's team approached Amazon MGM, not the other way around. At the time, Close Personal Friends was already deep in pre-production. Lily Collins and Brie Larson were locked in. The tone was sharp, self-aware, female-driven. Think Broad City meets The Big Chill, with Gen Z energy and millennial nostalgia. It was a passion project for director Jason Orley, known for his low-key comedy hits and his refusal to work with image-first actors. That's not a dig. That's his own language from a 2019 podcast interview. Meghan, however, came with an image. A very big one. To be fair, the pitch, according to leaked documents later obtained by journalists, was surprisingly modest. Her reps floated a single-episode role, billed as a meta-cameo, playing a fictionalized version of a lifestyle influencer-turned-writer. The idea? Poke fun at the public's perception of her. Add some irony. Reclaim the narrative. At first, Orley reportedly liked the concept. So did the studio, at least on paper. Meghan doing scripted comedy again. That was newsworthy. That was meme-worthy. That was good marketing. But then came the demands. Not outrageous, not on their own, but relentless in their accumulation. Meghan's team wanted script review privileges. They asked to approve wardrobe choices. They inquired about camera angles. They pushed for control over how her character's name would be presented in the credits, even though she wasn't playing herself. And then came the biggest red flag of all. They wanted to ensure she'd be featured in all official promotional materials. That alone raised internal concerns. Because remember, this was supposed to be a walk-on. Now let's pause here. Ask yourself this. Was Meghan really unaware of the size of the role? Or did she believe that once she stepped on set, her star power would organically expand the part? Some sources believe it was the latter, that she assumed her presence alone would earn her more time, that the camera would find her, that the director would realize what a coup it was to have her involved. But that's not how Jason Orley works. And that's not how ensemble comedies function. One producer allegedly described the situation like this: she wanted to be part of the team as long as she could still be the center. That quote would later circulate among the crew like wildfire. Now here's where the story gets messy. The original draft of the script, the one Meghan was pitched on, did include a lightly comedic 2-minute scene. Her character would deliver a brief monologue, play off Brie Larson's lead, and exit with a wink to camera. It was clever. It was designed for virality. But by the third draft, the scene had been heavily trimmed. And then, following table reads with the main cast, it was gone altogether. Why? Reportedly, Brie Larson flagged tone issues. Lily Collins felt the scene pulled focus. And Jason? He decided it simply didn't serve the story anymore. Meghan, however, was never formally updated. By the time she arrived on set, fresh off a transatlantic flight, glam squad in tow, she still believed she was delivering that monologue. That's the heartbreak. Imagine it. You're in a trailer. You've rehearsed your lines. You've practiced your timing. You've told your friends and your PR team to watch for the moment. You're envisioning a YouTube clip that gets millions of views. And then a low-level assistant knocks on your door and says, "Hey, we'll just need you for that hallway scene today." It's quick, no dialogue. The silence that followed reportedly lasted longer than the take itself. One insider, who asked not to be named, said Meghan stood perfectly still for 15 seconds, eyes locked on the assistant, before calmly responding, "I think you're mistaken." She wasn't wrong. She had been promised more. But she wasn't right either. Because at that point, no one was going to rewrite the script for her. The assistant shrugged, walked away, and that's when Meghan's camp went into overdrive. Suddenly, Jason Orley was being pulled aside. Emails from her lawyers were flying in. Executive producers were receiving urgent clarification requests. Calls were made to Amazon MGM's legal team. But none of it changed the script. Not one word. That's how far things had gone. The studio had made up its mind. Meghan was going to walk down that hallway. The camera would roll. And that would be that. Now let's talk about why this mattered so much, and why it still stings. Meghan Markle didn't just want to act again. She wanted to redefine herself. Her public image had been battered, twisted, ridiculed, from royal drama to Spotify flops. This film, this little indie comedy with its buzzy cast and snappy tone, was meant to remind people, hey, I'm still talented. I'm still funny. I can still carry a moment. But what happens when Hollywood doesn't need your moment? What happens when the story isn't about you? That's the irony here. Close Personal Friends was always meant to be an ensemble comedy about, wait for it, boundaries. Boundaries between fame and friendship, between loyalty and ego, between who we think we are and how the world sees us. And in a painfully poetic twist, Meghan became the very thing the film was warning against. A character who doesn't understand her place in the story. According to one senior crew member, the cast kept their distance from day one. Not out of malice, but out of caution. Meghan's presence meant paparazzi outside the studio gates. It meant NDAs tightened. It meant more stress, more stakes, and less spontaneity. Actors like Brie and Lily thrive on chemistry, on comfort, on inside jokes, and fluid energy. Meghan's team created an atmosphere of tension, subtle but constant. Requests flowed daily, different lighting, alternate takes, questions about how Duchess Meghan would be credited. And then, the question that really set off alarms. Would she be eligible for a supporting actress campaign? Supporting? For a role that lasted 5 seconds? That was the final straw. Jason Orley called an emergency meeting with the producers. One source says he didn't even raise his voice. He just laid it out. We're shooting the walk-on. We're keeping it simple. And we're moving on. That decision, quiet, firm, final, would set the entire production on a new path. One that would push Brie Larson to start documenting everything she saw. One that would lead Lily Collins to take a brief, self-imposed break. One that would eventually expose audio, memos, and leaked footage no one thought would see the light of day. But at the center of it all was the moment Meghan realized her role had been erased. Not in some grand, aggressive way, but surgically. Strategically, quietly, and whether she knew it or not, The cameras were about to turn, not on her performance, but on the drama she had unknowingly ignited. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. How do you tell a global icon she's the problem? That was the question on Jason Orley's mind as he stared down the growing disaster on the set of Close Personal Friends. He'd been here before, sort of. Egos, expectations, creative differences, they were part of the job. But this was something different. This wasn't just about a difficult actor. It was about the gravitational pull of someone who thought the entire film should orbit around her, even when she was barely in it. And worst of all, everyone was watching to see how he'd handle it. Let's rewind. Jason Orley isn't a household name, not in the way Meghan Markle is, but within Hollywood circles, he's one of those low-key, high-respect types. A director who writes his own scripts. A filmmaker who elevates character work. Someone who champions ensemble casts over A-lister tantrums. His breakout hit, Big Time Adolescence, was the kind of indie success that made studios trust him with slightly bigger budgets and more ambitious casts. So when Amazon MGM greenlit Close Personal Friends, they gave Orley the reins. Total creative freedom, minimal interference. His vision, his cast, his tone. Enter Meghan Markle. At first, Orley didn't flinch. He knew what her name brought: publicity, curiosity, global eyes. But what he underestimated was the gravity that came with it. Every conversation shifted. Every rehearsal turned stiff. Every crew member looked over their shoulder. Still, Orley wanted to make it work. He believed in second chances. He believed in irony and reinvention. He even believed, briefly, that Meghan might surprise everyone. But then he saw the memo. According to insiders, the first red flag came in the form of a seemingly routine email from Meghan's reps. It listed key expectations for her client's appearance on set. Among the points: personal lighting technician, the option to review her own dailies, and guaranteed inclusion in all official promo content. That's not how walk-ons work. But Orley still kept his cool. He invited Meghan to an informal table read, hoping to break the ice and reset the tone. What happened instead? Silence, tension, and Brie Larson staring daggers across the room. Apparently, Meghan arrived nearly an hour late. She declined to sit at the main table. Instead, she took a seat off to the side, flanked by two assistants, and asked to read her lines separately. Lines, mind you, that had already been removed from the latest script draft. It was awkward. It was icy. It was, as one crew member put it, the moment we knew she wasn't really here to be part of this. After that, Orley started getting daily updates from department heads, not about the film, but about the Meghan situation. The makeup team felt micromanaged. The wardrobe stylist had walked off after being told to rethink the Duchess aesthetic. Even the cinematographer complained that Meghan was sending notes about her lighting, despite being in the background. At first, Orley tried to protect her. He told the team, "Let's give her grace." He insisted this was just nerves, a comeback jitters thing. But when he got wind that Meghan's people had approached Amazon MGM directly, bypassing him entirely, to pitch the addition of a dream sequence centered on her character, he snapped. No yelling, no meltdown, just a quiet decision. It's done. He called a private meeting with the executive producers and laid out his dilemma. If they gave Meghan what she wanted, a larger part, narrative focus, promo inclusion, they risked disrupting the tone of the film. They risked alienating the rest of the cast. They risked losing the whole spirit of what Close Personal Friends was meant to be. Collaborative, quirky, humble. But if they cut her down, if they stuck to the walk-on plan, there would be fallout. And Jason Orley made the call. We shoot the hallway scene. One take. No drama. And we don't look back. He knew it would hurt. He knew Meghan's team would push back hard. But he also knew something else. And this is where things get really interesting. He wasn't alone. Unbeknownst to Meghan, the rest of the cast had already begun voicing concerns. Brie Larson, an Oscar winner, no stranger to high-pressure sets, had kept quiet at first. But after the second table read, she texted Jason privately. She's not here to act. She's here to curate. That word stuck with him. Curate. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Every part of Meghan's involvement felt prepackaged, rehearsed, like she was trying to control the story about her comeback more than the role itself. The performance wasn't on screen. It was in the press releases, The insider scoops, the carefully worded exclusives dropped to Variety and Harper's Bazaar. Lily Collins, meanwhile, was more direct. She reportedly told producers, "This energy isn't sustainable, and I'm not sticking around if she's getting special treatment." Now pause and think about that. You're Jason Orley. You've got Lily Collins, one of the leads, threatening to walk. You've got Brie Larson subtly documenting things. You've got department heads quietly rebelling. And then you've got Meghan Markle, asking whether her walk-on can be extended to a 3-scene arc with a musical cue. What would you do? Orley did what many directors wouldn't. He doubled down on the original plan. He made it clear, this wasn't going to be the Meghan Markle show. This was an ensemble piece. She had her cameo. She had her moment. And that was it. But here's the twist. He didn't tell her right away. Instead, he allowed her to arrive on set under the impression that she'd still be delivering dialogue. He let her go through hair and makeup. He let her settle into her trailer. And then, just minutes before the shoot, he sent a junior assistant to deliver the line that changed everything. "We'll need you for the hallway walk." Just a quick pass behind Brie. No lines. That moment, that silence, it wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. Orley knew that if he delivered the news, it would escalate. Meghan would argue. Her team would spin it. She might even walk off and create a tabloid circus. But if the message came from a nameless assistant, she'd be forced to react without a scene. And oh, she reacted. Sources say Meghan immediately called her PR rep. Within 10 minutes, a flurry of emails hit the studio. Words like miscommunication, professional disrespect, and reputational damage were tossed around. Threats were implied. Legal action was whispered. But Orley held the line. He didn't respond. Instead, he calmly called action and rolled on Meghan's scene. 5 seconds, silent, graceful, over. She walked down the hallway. No one clapped. No one cut. Just a nod from Jason, and then, moving on. That's when the tension exploded behind the scenes. Some crew members felt bad for her. Others felt vindicated. But everyone agreed. The spell had broken. The woman who came to command the story had just become a footnote in someone else's. And Orley? He went right back to filming. Now, here's where things take an even more shocking turn. According to sources close to the post-production process, Orley later asked the editors to prepare 2 versions of the final cut. One with Meghan's cameo included, and one without it at all. Why? Because he knew what was coming next. The leaks. The backlash. The inside sources who would say Meghan was mistreated. He needed options. He needed leverage. And most importantly, he needed to protect the film. Because the truth was out. Meghan had been cut down. Not by accident. Not by scheduling conflict. But by creative choice. And the world was about to find out. But before they did, before the premieres, the magazine exposes, the studio damage control, something happened on set that no one expected. Someone else decided to walk off. Someone Meghan never saw coming. Someone whose departure would ignite a media frenzy. And what they said as they walked off. That's where this story really catches fire. Did she know? That's the question no one can agree on. Did Meghan Markle walk onto the close personal friend's set that morning blissfully unaware her role had been gutted? Or did she already sense it, smell it in the air, and choose to pretend otherwise? Either way, one thing is certain. The moment she stepped through the studio doors, everything shifted. The energy, the mood, the volume of whispered conversations. It all changed. Let's set the scene. It's just after 8 a.m. at Amazon MGM's backlit soundstage in Los Angeles. It's the 3rd week of principal photography. Call time was 7:45 a.m. sharp. Brie Larson has already finished hair and makeup. Lily Collins is reviewing lines with the director. The crew is finishing blocking for the day's main scene. Then, black SUVs roll in. Not 1, 3. Out steps Meghan Markle, dressed not in casual sweats or comfy pre-shoot attire like most actors, but in a polished, pressed cream power coat, sunglasses, and Louboutin heels. Behind her, 2 assistants, a personal stylist, a security guard. No one else on the cast has security on site. This is where things begin to unravel. Quietly, invisibly, but unmistakably. Because you know that feeling? That moment when someone enters a space and the whole atmosphere tightens? That's what happened. Hair and makeup artists who'd been laughing seconds earlier suddenly went silent. PAs glanced at each other. The script supervisor lowered her voice. Even Jason Orley, normally relaxed with a cup of coffee in hand, stood a little straighter, a little stiffer. And then Meghan smiled. A bright, camera-ready smile that seemed to say, "I'm ready for my moment." But the moment wasn't waiting for her. She headed straight to her trailer, which had been freshly restocked per her team's pre-shoot rider. Organic teas, scented candles, and a mirror with adjustable LED lighting for complexion balance. Inside, her team laid out wardrobe options, despite the fact the wardrobe department had already finalized the look days ago. That was red flag number one. Red flag number two came when Meghan reportedly requested a last-minute script adjustment. She wanted to add a line. Just one. A single, ironic, self-aware quip as she passed by Brie Larson's character. Something playful like, "Don't I look familiar?" On paper, cute. On set, chaos. Because no one had approved it. And Jason Orley wasn't about to start a rewrite war over 5 seconds of screen time. Meanwhile, on the main soundstage, Lily Collins was fuming. According to a crew member positioned near the monitor, Lily turned to the AD and said flatly, "She's not even in this scene. Why is the entire set rearranging around her arrival?" And she wasn't wrong. Lighting had been adjusted. Camera positions reconsidered. Blocking altered. All to accommodate a silent cameo. That's when Lily made her decision. She grabbed her coffee, snapped shut her script binder, and walked off set. No tantrum. No raised voice. Just a single comment tossed over her shoulder. "Let me know when this turns back into a movie and not a press circus." It hit like a punch to the gut. Jason Orley stood frozen. Brie Larson looked down. The rest of the crew shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to chase after Lily or pretend nothing happened. And Meghan? She hadn't even stepped onto the stage yet. When she finally did, she was wearing the approved wardrobe, sort of. She had swapped out the shoes. The blouse had been altered. And the necklace she chose? A small gold pendant that reportedly featured the initials H&M. Subtle. Intentional. Symbolic. The crew clocked it. So did Brie. But no one said a word. Jason approached her with a cordial nod, script in hand, though there was no script needed. "You'll be walking past Brie here," he said. "Camera will track left. No lines. Just a clean pass." There was a pause. A long one. Then Meghan said, "I thought we were doing the dialogue." Jason shook his head, calm and firm. "That's been adjusted. It's just the pass-through now. Quick and simple." Another pause. Her face didn't fall, not visibly. But the air around her changed. Something shifted. A flicker of disbelief. Embarrassment? Anger? It was hard to read. She turned to one of her assistants. "Can you check my email? There should be a call sheet update." There wasn't. Because there hadn't been one. The scene had been removed quietly, without formal announcement. And now Meghan was standing, fully prepped, about to walk through a scene where she'd say absolutely nothing. On a set that had clearly moved on without her. This wasn't a performance. This was a political maneuver. And everyone knew it. The camera rolled. Meghan walked across the frame, eyes forward, posture perfect, expression neutral. The director didn't call cut. He just let it roll. Then, reset. They did it 3 more times. One slightly faster. One slower. One with Brie adjusting her reaction just slightly, as if surprised by the pass-by. No one mentioned Meghan's presence. No one treated her like a star. And on the 4th take, Meghan paused just a beat too long. Brie looked at her. Not in character. Not in confusion. Just looked. And something passed between them. A stare. A moment. A message. Because remember, Brie Larson hadn't wanted Meghan involved in the first place. Not because of jealousy. Not because of ego. But because of control. Brie is a trained actress. A grounded performer. She knows when a project is veering off track. And in her eyes, Meghan represented a risk. A distraction. A headline that might overshadow the film itself. Now, in that silence between takes, it became clear. The story had already shifted. This wasn't a comedy anymore. It was a power struggle. The camera turned off. Jason Orley clapped his hands. Good. We got it. Meghan didn't ask for playback. She didn't linger. She didn't smile. She returned to her trailer. And within minutes, her team began drafting a statement. Not for the press. Not yet. But for internal records. They wanted it known. Meghan had shown up, had performed as requested, and had not been given the original scene she was promised. That statement would later find its way into legal hands. But that's for later. For now, The damage was already done. Lily Collins hadn't returned. Bree had gone radio silent. The crew was murmuring. And Jason? Jason quietly ordered that Meghan's scene be logged as alt footage, not guaranteed for final cut. It was a polite way of saying, we'll use it, or we won't. Meghan left the set an hour later. She didn't take any selfies with cast. She didn't post anything. She didn't speak to Jason again. But the headlines were already forming. A royal on set. A co-star walks off. A cameo downgraded to nothing. The Whisper network was alive, and by the end of the week, one of Meghan's allies would leak just enough details to make it look like she had been wronged. But Jason Orley? He wasn't staying silent either, because he had recordings, notes, a timeline. A version of the truth the tabloids hadn't heard yet. And that version? Well, it started to surface when Brie Larson decided she'd had enough and began leaking pieces of her own. What she revealed next, it would send shockwaves through the entire production. She had every intention of staying quiet. That was Lily Collins' plan when this film began. To show up, do the work, keep things classy, be the consummate professional. She wasn't here for drama. She wasn't here for headlines. And she definitely wasn't here to play babysitter to a duchess trying to hijack a movie with a 5-second cameo. But every actor has a breaking point. And Lily's came faster than anyone expected. Let's go back to week 2 of filming. Just days before Meghan Markle's on-set arrival, the cast was hitting their stride. Chemistry was building. Brie Larson and Lily had found a rhythm, quick banter, inside jokes, that magical shorthand that happens when two actors get each other. Jason Orley was ecstatic. Crew morale was high. The energy? Easy, fluid, focused. But then, the emails started. They came from Meghan's team, first trickling in, then escalating in frequency. Each message carried a layer of passive-aggressive diplomacy, always wrapped in a tone of faux collaboration. Just confirming Meghan will have her personal glam team available. Is there a dedicated space on set for their setup? Meghan would love to align on creative tone. Could someone send the full script in advance so she can make contextual notes? Would Jason be open to an informal Zoom with Meghan before her shoot day to ensure narrative clarity? Narrative clarity? For a 5-second cameo, Lily Collins, ever the pro, kept her eye rolls private. But the crew noticed the shift. The vibe was changing. The relaxed, collaborative energy was being replaced by something else, something colder, controlled, tense. And when Lily found out Meghan's meta cameo had ballooned into a mini press rollout with leaked headlines calling it Meghan's major Hollywood return, she snapped. She's not even in the damn movie, Lily reportedly muttered under her breath in the wardrobe department. But the real fury came on the day Meghan actually stepped on set, the day we just left off in the last chapter. Lily had been prepped for a simple scene. Brie would deliver a few lines, walk through a hallway. Meghan would cross in the background. Quick, simple, barely even worth a second glance. But instead, she arrived to chaos. Lights had been re-rigged. Meghan's team had commandeered a private changing area. The second assistant director had been pulled into a 40-minute schedule clarification Zoom with Meghan's publicist. And worst of all, the entire shoot had been delayed by over an hour to accommodate Meghan's personal photographer, who needed to capture organic behind-the-scenes moments. Lily wasn't having it. She pulled Jason aside and asked a direct question. Is she a guest star, or is she directing this thing? Jason didn't have a clean answer, because the truth was he'd lost control, not of the movie, but of the atmosphere. Meghan's presence had become a vortex, pulling every department into her orbit. It didn't matter that she had no lines. It didn't matter that she'd barely be in the film. She was commanding more attention than the two leads combined. That's when Lily Collins, professional, patient, always respectful Lily, exploded. Not publicly, not dramatically, but precisely. She grabbed her script binder, took one final glance at the call sheet, and turned to the nearest PA. Let Jason know I'm off the set until this circus gets packed up. And she walked. No shouting, no grandstanding, just the kind of deliberate, cutting exit that lands with more force than any tantrum ever could. Crew members stood frozen. Brie Larson, who had been watching from across the set, slowly exhaled. As if she'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to finally say what everyone else was too polite to admit. This wasn't a film shoot anymore. It was a PR battlefield. Lily Collins returned to her trailer and locked the door. Inside, she made 2 calls. The first was to her agent. The second, and this is where things get interesting, was to a trusted entertainment journalist she'd worked with before. Not to leak. Not yet. But to warn. Because if this spiraled any further, she wasn't going to stay silent. And Meghan? She hadn't even seen Lily's exit. She was too busy reviewing playback footage of her hallway walk, asking, allegedly, if the camera could hold a beat longer on her crossing. When told no, she simply nodded and asked her assistant to make a note. Meanwhile, the crew was cracking. Grips were rolling their eyes. Wardrobe staff were whispering about staging a slowdown. The camera team, usually upbeat, was openly joking about how many takes they'd need just to walk past a duchess. And Jason Orley? He retreated to Video Village, head in hands, trying to map a path forward without losing his lead actress or losing his mind. That night, after wrap, Lily didn't attend the usual cast dinner. Bree texted her, no reply. Instead, Lily spent the evening drafting a message, short, surgical, and firm, that she would later send to the producers. This project meant something to me. Still does. But if I'm expected to share a screen or a marketing campaign with someone who's using this film as a personal brand rehab tour, then I'm out. It wasn't an ultimatum. It was a boundary, and it shook the studio to its core. Amazon MGM had banked on close personal friends as a low-drama, high-buzz indie hit, a showcase for smart, funny women. But now they were looking at headlines waiting to explode. Lily Collins walks off set over Meghan drama. Inside the toxic power struggle behind Meghan Markle's comeback film, Brie Larson and Lily Collins at war with the Duchess? They couldn't afford it. So the calls began. Executives reached out to Lily's agent. Producers begged for a Zoom meeting. Jason Orley sent a personal text. You were right. I should have handled it sooner. And slowly, carefully, Lily re-engaged. But not without conditions. Her screen time would not be altered. Meghan would not be featured in any primary promotional material. And most importantly, there would be no mention, zero, zip, nada, of Lily sharing the screen with Meghan Markle in any studio press releases. Jason agreed. The producers folded. And Meghan? Well, she didn't know any of this yet. Not until someone close to the cast leaked the first whisper to a gossip blog. A short, sharp line buried in a blind item. A-list actress storms off set after finding out her 5-second co-star wants top billing. The article didn't name names. But it didn't have to. Because by the next morning, Meghan's phone was blowing up. And the press? They were circling like sharks. But what Meghan did next would trigger a chain reaction no one could have predicted. Not even Brie Larson, who was about to break her silence in the most shocking way yet. She didn't want to get involved. Brie Larson had made a quiet promise to herself at the start of the shoot. Stay focused. Stay neutral. Don't let the noise in. But when Lily Collins walked off set, Brie knew neutrality was no longer an option. Because now the house was on fire. And she wasn't about to let it burn without keeping receipts. Here's the thing most people don't realize about Brie Larson. She's not just an actress. She's a tactician. She studies the temperature of a room. She listens more than she speaks. And when she moves with purpose. So while Meghan Markle was commanding headlines and Lily Collins was drawing a line in the sand, Brie was quietly collecting data. Voice memos, screenshots, dates, times, eyewitness accounts. Not for gossip, not for revenge, but for protection. Because Brie had seen how this story could twist, how one misunderstood look, one misquoted comment, one manipulated leak, could flip a narrative on its head. And Meghan? Meghan had the media machine. The platform. The global sympathy card. Brie had the truth. And she was about to use it. Let's rewind to the day after Lily Collins' walk-off. The set was subdued. Jason Orley was in damage control mode. Production assistants looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Brie, however, was calm, centered. But under the surface, she was boiling. According to a crew member, Brie had gone from smiling and chatting between takes to headphones in, notebook open, and a don't approach me unless you're bleeding energy. She'd had enough. Because she'd watched, in real time, as an actress with 5 seconds of screen time warped the entire tone of the production. Not through performance, through presence and manipulation. So when Brie received a friendly, text from someone in Meghan's orbit. A publicist she'd worked with years ago. She immediately recognized the game. The text read, "Hope you're doing great. Just wanted to check in. Hearing some weird vibes on set? Would love to help smooth things over before press gets involved too hard." It wasn't a check-in. It was a warning. Someone, likely from Meghan's team, was testing the waters, seeing if Bree could be pacified, roped in, maybe even silenced with a little flattery. Bree didn't respond. Instead, she opened her phone and began recording. That night, she started an audio diary, just for herself. Each night after filming, she'd sit alone in her trailer and record what she'd seen, heard, and felt that day. Monday, 10:13 p.m. Meghan arrived with an entire entourage again. Delayed call time by 45 minutes. Jason looks like he's going to combust. Tuesday, 9:44 p.m. Lily left set. Didn't say goodbye. Her eyes were red. She's over it. We all are. Wednesday, 11:02 p.m. Meghan asked if she could have a solo shot during Bree's dialogue scene. Jason said no. Meghan smiled and asked again later through her assistant. Each entry was calm, detailed, ruthless in its clarity, because Bree knew where this was going, and she wasn't about to be dragged into a media mess without the facts. But it was what happened the next day that broke her silence, publicly. Mid-shoot, during a break in rehearsals, a rumor hit Twitter. A celebrity gossip account with nearly 1 million followers tweeted. Hearing from inside the close personal friends set that Brie Larson and Meghan Markle are clashing. Brie allegedly upset over Meghan's rising role in the film. Yikes. Within minutes, Brie versus Meghan was trending. And Brie? She was livid. Because she hadn't said a word. She hadn't leaked anything. Hadn't spoken to press. Hadn't even told friends what was going on. She'd kept her head down. And still, somehow, she was being painted as the jealous co-star. That's when she snapped. She opened her notes app, typed out a 4-line post, took a breath, and hit share to her Instagram story. The post read, "Working hard on a film I love with people I respect. Don't believe everything you read. Silence is not weakness, sometimes it's strategy." Mic drop. No names. No accusations. But everyone knew exactly what she meant. The industry read between the lines. So did the fans. And the timing? Devastating. Because just hours later, a leaked email began circulating. Allegedly from Meghan's legal team, requesting that Amazon MGM review editorial content related to Markle's character in promotional materials. Translation? Meghan's team was trying to control how she'd be seen. Again, and Brie's quiet, cutting post had blown the lid off the entire narrative. The media smelled blood. Suddenly, the story wasn't Brie jealous of Meghan. It was, Brie fights back as Meghan tries to rewrite film from the sidelines. That's when the stories started tumbling out. One source claimed Meghan had tried to renegotiate her billing placement on IMDb. Another said her team had demanded to see a rough cut of the entire film, even though she only appeared in one scene. A third insisted Meghan had asked whether her walk-on role could be expanded in post using B-roll and ADR. Yes, you read that correctly. ADR, automated dialogue replacement. She wanted to add her voice into the film after filming had ended. Jason Orley reportedly called that request creative madness. Brie? She just laughed, bitterly, quietly, into her microphone. That night, she recorded. She thinks she can dub herself into the movie. She's literally trying to manifest a bigger role after the fact. I can't believe this is real life. But what Brie did next wasn't quiet at all. She went to Jason, and she handed him a copy of her recordings. Not the audio itself. She wasn't ready for that. But a typed transcript. Dated. Labeled. Page by page. She wanted him to know. If this blew up, if lawsuits flew, if headlines painted her as difficult, she had the proof. And she would use it. Jason read it in silence. Then looked up and said one word. "Thank you." Brie nodded. Walked away. And didn't look back. Because from that moment on, the silence was over. She wasn't playing the diplomat anymore. And Meghan? Well, she had no idea what was coming. Because someone very close to the studio, was about to leak an internal memo that would crush the Duchess's comeback dreams once and for all. A memo that confirmed what everyone had feared. That Meghan's role was never supposed to be more than 5 seconds. That her screen time had been deliberately reduced. And that the director and the studio had planned for backlash. But what that memo said in black and white, that was something even Meghan couldn't spin. Can a 5-second clip destroy a reputation? That's the question that would come to haunt not just Meghan Markle, but the entire cast and crew of close personal friends. Because what was supposed to be a blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo turned into a full-blown media inferno. One hallway walk, one silent pass in the background of a scene. No dialogue, no close-up, not even a reverse shot. And yet, when the footage leaked, it went viral in minutes. But before we get to the leak, let's talk about what actually happened that day on set. It started as a routine shoot. No stunts, no improvisation. Just a quiet dialogue scene between Brie Larson and one of the supporting actors, set in a trendy, faux modern co-working space built on the soundstage. As they delivered their lines, witty, fast-paced, natural, the camera panned slightly left, and there she was. Meghan Markle, crossing behind them in the background, dressed in beige, carrying a fake clipboard, walking with perfect posture, eyes forward, silent. And that was it. She didn't look at the camera. She didn't interact with the scene. She didn't even pause. 5 seconds, maybe less. But what the cameras didn't capture, what they couldn't capture, was the tension thickening behind the monitor during that take. Because everyone watching, Jason Orley, the producers, the script supervisor, even the boom mic operator, knew exactly what was at stake. This wasn't just a scene. It was a battlefront. A moment designed to keep Meghan in the film while minimizing the damage she could do. But why so drastic? Why the silence? Why the background? Why not give her even one line? Because the studio had made a calculated decision. After weeks of chaos, delays, diva demands, and an on-set walkout, Amazon MGM knew they couldn't cut her entirely, at least not yet. There were contracts, PR considerations, legal risk, but they could reduce her to the safest possible contribution, background filler. No close-up, no lines, no promotional obligation. That was the compromise, and for a while it held, until someone inside the editing room made a mistake. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was intentional. An early test reel was sent to an external vendor for color grading. A short reel, less than 90 seconds long. Just a snippet of scene 22. But in that 90 seconds, Meghan's walk-on was visible. Not centered, not highlighted, just there. That file. It ended up in the hands of a post-production assistant. And within 48 hours, it was online. No studio watermark. No audio. Just a 5-second silent .mp4 clip uploaded to a private Reddit thread titled, "Guess who's not starring in this movie?" From there, it exploded. It was reposted to Twitter, now X, TikTok, and Instagram with captions like, "This is Meghan Markle's big comeback role. Skull. 5 seconds of fame. The Duchess of Cameos. She left the royal family for this?" The ridicule was immediate, brutal, unrelenting. Reaction videos poured in. Edits mocked her presence with circus music. Some supercut the scene with her Oprah interview, playing her "I just wanted to tell my truth" over the silent walk. It was vicious, but also viral. And Amazon MGM panicked. Because now the truth was out, and it looked so much worse on screen than it did on paper. There she was, the Duchess of Sussex. Silent. Invisible. Reduced to a moving blur behind two people who never even acknowledged her. No wonder Meghan was furious. Within hours of the leak, her lawyers fired off cease and desist letters to gossip blogs, Twitter accounts, and media pages. But the clip had already been downloaded thousands of times. It was out, and it wasn't going back in. So what did Meghan do? She pivoted. Hard. Instead of denying the footage was real, her PR team attempted to reframe it. Within a day, an anonymous source close to Meghan told Entertainment Weekly that the scene was always meant to be an Easter egg. A wink. A postmodern moment of irony. A powerful woman choosing subtlety over spectacle. But nobody bought it. The footage didn't read like a deliberate Easter egg. It read like a cut, a punishment, a snub. And then came the meme. One TikTok user edited the clip to freeze on Meghan mid-walk and added the caption, "She's serving clipboard. She's serving silence. She's serving I left Netflix for this." It got 3.6 million views in under 48 hours. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the absence of Meghan. Late-night hosts picked it up. Commentators laughed. Tabloids dragged. And inside Amazon MGM, the damage control meetings began. The question on everyone's lips? Do we leave the scene in or cut her entirely? The marketing team was split. Some argued the controversy was good for buzz. Keep the scene, lean into the chaos, let people come just to see the cameo that caused a meltdown. Others warned it could derail the film's tone, turn a tight comedy into a tabloid curiosity. Jason Orley had already made his decision. According to a leaked internal memo, and here's where it gets devastating. Jason had directed the Meghan walk-on with a long lens, shallow depth of field, and minimal blocking on purpose. The goal? Keep her fuzzy, out of focus, barely noticeable. The memo even included this line: walk-on subject to trim/remove during final pass. Role not integral to narrative cohesion. It was cold, clinical, and clearly deliberate, but it was also honest. And when that memo leaked, the internet exploded again, because now it wasn't just funny. It was humiliating. Meghan Markle, once hailed as a future queen, had now been reduced to an optional blur in the background of a comedy, and the director had the paperwork to prove it. The memes got meaner. The headlines got sharper. And Meghan? She retreated. No more sources. No more whispers to People magazine. Her team went quiet. Social media paused. Her Archwell site posted a vague message about privacy and peace. But behind the scenes, she was furious. According to one insider, Meghan called an emergency meeting with her lawyers, her publicist, and, shockingly, a crisis management consultant who had previously handled high-profile Hollywood meltdowns. She wanted the footage removed from all platforms. She wanted a public apology from Amazon MGM. And, most incredibly, she wanted the studio to re-edit her role into a real scene. Yes, you read that right. Meghan allegedly asked if they could reshoot her cameo, write in new dialogue, add a small subplot, maybe even hint at a spin-off character. Jason Orley's response: silence. He never even took the meeting. Instead, Amazon MGM quietly began editing 2 versions of the film. One with Meghan's cameo, and one without it. Because if the firestorm didn't die down soon, they knew what had to be done. They'd erase her entirely. No walk, no background blur, no trace. But before they could make that call, something else happened. A memo leaked. A memo that went deeper than just footage. A memo that revealed how Meghan's involvement had been quietly downgraded from the very beginning. A memo that would shake her camp to its core. And once the world saw what Amazon MGM really thought of Meghan's creative input, everything changed. And not in her favor. Every Hollywood project has internal memos, casting notes, budget estimates, schedule outlines, talking points for PR. But very few of those documents ever see the light of day. That's why what happened next in the close personal friends debacle wasn't just a leak. It was a controlled detonation. And Meghan Markle? She was standing directly at ground zero. It started innocently. A curious entertainment blogger, someone known for mining obscure studio emails and production chatter, received a tip. A single screenshot. No context, no metadata. Just a short section of text allegedly pulled from an internal Amazon MGM document titled Project Alignment and Risk Overview. The subject line of that tip? This is what they really think of Meghan. At first glance, it looked fake. Too direct. Too brutal. Too surgical. But then other fragments surfaced. First 1 paragraph. Then 3 pages. And suddenly, the full picture snapped into focus. Not through interviews or speculation, but through the cold, blunt language of corporate damage control. Let's break it down. The memo, which spanned 9 pages and had multiple redactions, was dated 3 weeks before Meghan's walk-on shoot day. That means the studio had been planning for fallout before she ever stepped onto the set. Right from the top, the tone was clinical. Subject: Markle cameo re. Strategic inclusion versus exposure risk mitigation. Yes, you read that right. They didn't call it a performance. Not a role. Not even a guest appearance. They called it a strategic inclusion. And just a few lines later, the real bombshell. Current assessment indicates high media volatility linked to Markle brand. Inclusion offers PR bump, but disproportionate resource demand and risk to ensemble cohesion. Translated, she brings attention, but she's not worth the trouble. Another section outlined 4 risk tiers, rating everything from press interference to cast morale, and ranked Meghan's involvement as Tier 2, high-complexity actor with limited narrative relevance. Ouch, But the most jaw-dropping part? A paragraph labeled PR Protocol, Post-Production Cut Strategy. This was the plan. Months before the cameras rolled, Amazon MGM was already planning two versions of the film. Primary cut A includes Meghan's walk-on, no lines, no promo obligations. Secondary cut B excludes Meghan entirely. Cut scene, adjusted continuity, zero mention in credits. Both were laid out before she even filmed, which means the 5-second cameo was never a placeholder for more screen time. It was a trapdoor, a way to get the press mileage without the long-term commitment. A parachute they could yank at any time. And the memo confirmed something else too, something that made Meghan's camp seethe. There had never been plans to include her in marketing campaigns. Despite the anonymous insider teasers leaked to magazines, despite her team's persistent outreach to get her listed in Variety's spring film roundup, she was never part of the studio's promotional strategy. One line read, "Do not confirm or deny Markle participation. No comment protocol unless forced. Avoid inclusion in cast listings unless legally compelled." This wasn't just a professional distancing. It was a calculated firewall. Meghan had been brought on as a bullet point, not a collaborator. A clickable headline, not a creative partner. And now, that entire strategy had just gone public. Within hours, screenshots of the memo flooded the internet. Reddit, Twitter, even mainstream outlets like The Hollywood Reporter and Deadline picked it up. And while Amazon MGM refused to comment, the silence was damning. Journalists began calling the situation the cameo crisis. Industry pundits questioned whether Meghan would ever be cast again. And in Montecito, Meghan's team went into full-blown meltdown mode. According to a source close to her PR firm, there were urgent calls between lawyers, managers, and brand consultants. Some were pushing for a defamation lawsuit. Others wanted a strategic interview blitz, maybe with Gayle King or Oprah, to control the narrative. But Meghan? She wanted blood. She allegedly told one confidant, "They used me for press. Then they erased me. I want people to know what they did." But here's the problem. The memo did show what they did. In excruciating, emotionless detail. They calculated. They leveraged. They minimized. And Meghan had walked right into it. Because for all the control she tried to assert on set, from wardrobe to lighting to script notes, she never controlled the story. Jason Orley did. The producers did. Amazon MGM did. They had always kept her at arm's length. Always prepared for the backlash. Always a step ahead. And now that the plan had been revealed, Meghan's public position was toast. Even her defenders began to hesitate. A well-known entertainment columnist tweeted, "I defended Meghan's right to act again. But this memo is wild. They planned to phase her out from the start, and she still walked in thinking she was co-starring." A former Netflix colleague posted, and then quickly deleted. This reminds me of the Spotify situation. She wants the spotlight, but not the grind. And perhaps most devastating of all, the silence from close personal friends itself. No one, not Jason Orley, not Brie Larson, not Lily Collins, not Amazon MGM, stepped forward to deny the memo's authenticity. Because it was real, and that silence spoke louder than any official statement ever could. But Meghan wasn't done yet. Because in her eyes, there was still one card left to play. A documentary. A docuseries. A behind-the-scenes truth about what really happened, not just on this set, but in her entire post-royal career. Sources say she began shopping the idea around under the working title, Silenced, The Cost of Stepping Out. And the pitch? A powerful exploration of how strong women are sidelined, minimized, and edited out when they don't fit the narrative. It was bold. It was dramatic. And it was unmistakably aimed at close personal friends. But there was just one problem. The streamers weren't buying. Not Netflix. Not Hulu. Not even Apple TV. Everyone passed. And one anonymous exec gave the cruelest rejection of all. She wasn't silenced. She was background noise. But Meghan, never one to retreat quietly, doubled down. She called her agents. She scheduled a Vanity Fair cover shoot. She reached out to former staffers to see if anyone would go on the record about her mistreatment on set. And just when it looked like she might try to blow up the entire production in retaliation, an unexpected olive branch arrived. From Lily Collins. An invitation, a message, and a red carpet premiere that would change everything or destroy what little was left. Because Meghan's decision to attend? It would become the most scrutinized moment of her entire Hollywood return. But she couldn't resist, because in her mind, this was still her comeback story. She just didn't realize. The credits were already rolling.